Hello, welcome to Excellent Kids and Families page. It's been a while. It's been a while. I hope that you are doing very, very well. Without wasting too much time, why don't you invite your friends and families, especially your children, your teenagers, your young people to come in and listen. We've got a very important topic today, and we wouldn't want anybody to miss out. It's been a while, but we trust that you are all well. You had a great half term, parents and children alike, and you spend the time very well, profitably. And I hope that you are keeping safe. Yes, the storm Eunice is really hitting hard, but we believe and pray that everybody is kept safe. So we are going to make a start. We are going to make a start. Today, our topic is so vital, it's so important for us to bring this lesson to everyone, especially the young people. And let's start off with a question. So, what would you do if you saw a monster? What would you do if you saw a monster? If you are like me and most people, you would do a runner, right? You will run away. Yet there is this monster that many people entertain in their lives unknowingly, often, sometimes to knowingly, but they don't know how to deal with it. So that is what our lesson is based on, how to deal with that green eye monster. And another common name given to this green eye monster is, of course, jealousy. And that one, I'm sure most of you know what jealousy is all about. So, why is it referred to as a green eye monster, as an expression? And you might have also heard about another, idiomatic expression that goes like somebody is green with envy. So there seems to be this association with green, which, by the way, is my favorite color. There seems to be an association with green and envy and jealousy, and I don't like it because I love green, the color. But it goes back many years ago, those ancient times. The ancient Greeks, those that have studied words, says that these were the times where the Greeks in the olden times believed that um, our body organs internally produced the emotions that we feel. And so when somebody was feeling envious or jealous, it was because their liver was producing too much bile. So there you go, a bit of history for you right there. So, jealousy, what does it mean? You probably have felt it, probably know the meaning of it, but it's definitely worth recapping, worth going over. It simply means having a feeling of anger and fear about losing something, which is very similar to envy, which is similar to envy but slightly different. So jealousy is the anger or the fear of losing something valuable, such as a relationship or a position. So if you had a friend and your friend was hanging out with other people, you might feel jealous because you are kind of afraid that you might lose your friend, a little bit angry that your friend is hanging out with other people other than yourself. Whereas if you are envious or feeling envy, this is when you are feeling that you want to possess something that the other person have. So if somebody else had toys or had a game console, had a phone, you wish you were that person. You wish that thing was yours. So that is envy. Now, let's see the life application of envy. And we have a classic life application of it in the Bible, actually, in First Samuel chapter 18, verse 1. It's quite a long, the whole of the chapter is quite long, but we won't read everything because of time. So we'll pick the key verses from First Samuel chapter 18. The title is Saul's jealousy of David. verse verse 4 says that Jonathan took off Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. So Jonathan was the son of Saul and became very close friends with David when David came into Saul was a king when David came into Saul's palace. So their friendship grew, but this chapter is basically based on Saul, who is Jonathan's dad, his jealousy towards David. Now let's see, how did this jealousy come about? What happened? Verse 6 says that Verse 5 says that whatever Saul sent David to do, he did it so successfully that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the people and Saul's officers as well. So we can see that David was performing very, very well, was an excellent, young person, and he got his promotion after doing everything so successfully. Verse 6 says that when the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from all the towns in Israel to meet King Saul with singing and dancing, with joyful songs and with tambourines. And they danced and they sang. And listen, this is the key bit. These were the lyrics of the song that the women sang. They were meeting the soldiers and they were excited. Their soldiers had been, successful. They have conquered. They have won the battle and they are coming back from the war zone. So the women were excited that their men are coming home with victory, and they were singing and dancing. And the lyrics of the song says that Saul has slain his thousands, but David his 10,000s. And that difference there hit Saul. It made Saul, verse 8 says that Saul was very angry. What did we say? Saul, the Bible says Saul was very angry, and we said that jealousy is the feeling of anger and fear of losing something valuable. So, or the thought of losing something valuable. Now, this made Saul feel sad as well and began to resent David. And he thought, I love that verse 8. It says that they have credited, this is the thinking of Saul, they had credited David with tens of thousands. He thought, but me with only thousands, what more can he get but the kingdom? So the fear of losing his position as a king, losing the kingdom, his glory, his fame, his popularity to David made Saul afraid, angry, and it birthed jealousy in him. So jealousy comes as a result of the feeling of what? Discontentment, feeling that you haven't done enough and somebody else has done better or more than you. Feeling insecure is another sign that jealousy, the green eye monster, is creeping up on you. So if you can identify these feelings even before it gets bigger into the green eye monster, you can control it much better. So you can control your um feeling of discontentment, feeling like you haven't got enough, or the thought that you don't have enough, you haven't done enough. You can control it by looking at all the things that you have also done. Now, Saul only picked, this particular battle that David has killed 10,000 more than him, but he hasn't considered all the other things that, as an older man, he has achieved better than David. So if he had considered all the other things he had achieved better than David, where would the feeling of discontentment have come in? It wouldn't have mattered. So if he had realized, whoops, I'm feeling discontent now and I need to deal with it. I'm feeling insecure now, I need to deal with it. He didn't deal with it when he was at that stage. Let's see what happened. He allowed it, he brooded over it. He continued to play that lyrics on his mind. He continued to play that the lyrics of the song. Saul has slain his thousands, David has slain his 10,000. He continued to play it on his mind, and the more he played it on his mind, the green eye monster was getting bigger and bigger. Verse says that the next day an evil spirit came forcefully upon Saul. So as it's getting bigger, it means that even worse feelings, worse emotions, negative emotions were coming towards him. He was feeling down, he was feeling low, he was so filled with all sorts of negative emotions because he hasn't dealt with the lower ones. He has allowed it to grow by thinking and thinking about how jealous and how discontent he is, how insecure he is, to the point that he had to act on those strong feelings, those strong emotions. And the Bible says that he had a spear, Saul had a spear in his hand, and he threw it, saying towards David, saying, I will pin David to the wall. But David swerved or eluded him twice. So we see how this green eye monster almost got David killed through Saul. So when jealousy is not dealt with, it can cause a lot of havoc. The consequences can be dire. The consequences can be horrible, can move a person to do, the unthinkable. So it's important that you stay away from it. You learn how to handle it, how to deal with it. And this lesson is so valuable because it's going to show you how you can handle it, how you can deal with it, how you can overcome it. Now, the Bible continues to say, Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with David, but had left Saul. He was afraid. So he sent David away from him and gave him command over 1,000 men. And David led the troops in their campaigns. In everything that David did, the Bible says that he had great success. When Saul saw how successful he was, how David was, he was so afraid. He was so afraid. Before that, the Bible has said in verse 9, and from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. And that is also very key. A jealous eye. The green eye monster, the jealousy eye is a green eye monster that you must not allow in your life, that need to be rid of. But instead, Saul entertained the green eye monster and he used it to keep an eye on David, a jealousy eye. You've all heard the expression, keep an eye on this, meaning look after this. But this time, it wasn't just looking after it in a good sense, but in a bad sense with a jealousy eye. And the key lessons we learn from this passage of the Bible, which talks about Saul's jealousy of David, is that we realize that Saul was preoccupied with David. So lesson number one, don't be too preoccupied with another person's success, another person's belongings, what the other person has and hasn't got. Don't be too preoccupied. Don't spend your entire time focusing on another person. When you do that, your eyes can only focus on one thing at a time, right? You cannot look at so many other things in one go. You can only focus properly on one thing at a time. So when you begin to look at another person, you are wasting your time. That same time that could have been concentrated on yourself, to improve on yourself, to make yourself better, you are rather using that eye on another person. So Saul wasted his time focusing on David. And the Bible says that he realized that the Lord has left him. Why has the Lord left him? Because he is busy concentrating on another person, which means that God should be focusing on that person because that person is more important than him. So the key lesson is Don't focus all your attention on another person, especially with the eye of jealousy. Don't do that. If you do that, you're gonna waste your own time. You end up, not working on yourself, and you're gonna even feel more jealous, because the more attention or focus you give to something, it magnifies. The thing begins to magnifies. The more you look deeper at something, the more you see about that thing, the more your mind begin to open about that thing. So if you go looking at somebody with a jealousy eye, guess what? You're gonna find hundreds and thousands of their successes and very, very little of your own, because you are not digging and looking into your own life and finding all the great things that you are also capable of doing or have achieved. So that's lesson number one. Now, lesson number two, what can we learn from Saul's jealousy of David? Is your thinking, learning to control your thinking. We touched on it earlier. Learning to control your thought is so vital. He thought about the song the women had just sung, and he what repeated it in his mind. He repeated it in his mind. I believe that it kept playing on his mind. Wow, I have only slain thousands, but this young boy David has slain 10,000. Oh my God, the kingdom is his now. Nobody is gonna respect me. He kept letting the negative words grow louder and sound louder and louder and louder and louder in his mind. Learn so much about he allowed the words to play on his mind. And as he did that, guess what? He was allowing the jealousy to grow. So what can we learn from this? Check your thoughts. The moment that jealousy feeling, the feeling of discontentment, the feeling of insecurity, as we said earlier, comes in your mind, cast it out. Don't focus on it. Don't let the sentence from one sentence to go to second sentence, third paragraph, and before you realize, you have written a paragraph in your mind that is all negative and driving you and letting the green eye monster grow bigger and bigger in your inside of you. Don't allow it. The moment that thought of sentence begin, you put a full stop and you cross it out. Do not allow it to grow. What else can we learn from this passage, this life application of Saul's jealousy of David? We realize that Saul could have turned it the other way around. He could have turned the situation the other way around. He could have gotten an inspiration from David by admiring him, that wow, such a young boy can do this, great stuff, and begin to get an inspiration from him. And as my daughter would say, learn one or two from him. And we can do that when somebody does something that is marvelous, that is great. We admire the person. We can ask the person, how did you do that? We can learn from the person. So rather than allowing the feeling of jealousy, resentment, set in to begin to hate the person, rather we can turn it around and begin to admire the person with the thought of admiration. And as we think of how wonderful this person is, the feeling will begin to be wonderful in the inside of us rather than feeling of jealousy. Then whilst we are admiring them and we are praising them and congratulating them, they get happier and they get warmer to us, meaning that when we get closer to them, they are likely to share with us their tips, what is that they are doing that is making them so successful, that is making them achieve and do so well, and we might be able to learn a thing or two from this person. So these are some of the key lessons that we can learn. I'm just going over my notes to make sure that I have given you all the key lessons, that you can possibly learn from this passage. And if we run out of time, that is fine. We can always come back next week and continue going over it. Right, okay. So I think this is all we have for today. This is all we have for today, but we will do a second version. We will do a second version of it where we will go in depth and give you so many other tools that you can use to overcome the green eye monster. To overcome the green eye monster. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. We know that it has been valuable, and you will be coming back, God willing, next week to get some more nuggets, some more tools to help you deal with the green eye monster. My prayer for you is that the Lord will help you and give you the wisdom on how to handle the feeling of jealousy, how to turn it around for your good, use it as an inspiration to improve upon yourself and to be a better version of yourself. So have a wonderful time wherever you are and take care. Bye.